Can a bad relationship between driver and engineer sabotage an entire Formula One season? What is happening between Hamilton and Ferrari in Brazil could give you the most shocking answer of the year. The 2025 Brazilian Grand Prix was supposed to represent a turning point for Ferrari. With only one free practice session available due to the weekend's sprint format, every minute on the track was pure gold. This practice at Interlagos became, however, a nightmare for the Scuderia. Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc, the two drivers of a historically dominant team, finished at the bottom of the table. Hamilton, with a time of 1 minute and 11.493 seconds, was second to last, barely surpassed by Leclerc, who recorded the same time. This figure alone already set off alarms, but the difference with the lead of more than 1.4 seconds compared to the leader, Lando Norris, was not only abysmal, but devastating for a team that aspires to compete for the title. That time frame in modern Formula One is simply unacceptable for a top team. It means that in a fast lap, Ferrari is not only not competitive, but is closer to the performance of a team at the back of the grid than to the level of McLaren, Red Bull, or Mercedes. This performance gap was even more evident in the so-called combined ideal lap, a metric that adds together the best sectors separately to project a driver's best possible time. Even with this statistical advantage, Ferrari remained the worst team in the table without mitigating factors. And then came the moment that illustrated it all. Lewis Hamilton, at the end of practice, completely lost control of the SF-25 at the Mergelho corner. The car spun 720 degrees, a double spin that was not only visually dramatic, but technically revealing. It was not pilot error. It was the direct result of a phenomenon known as bottoming out. This happens when the rear of the car drops so low that it hits the ground, causing an instant loss of all downforce. At that moment, the car is no longer controllable. Lose grip, lose direction, and what follows is pure chaos. That this occurs in a fast corner indicates critical flaws in the car's setup, particularly the ride height, an aspect that Ferrari has failed to stabilize since preseason. But what was most worrying was not just the incident itself, but its context. Ferrari knew they would only have 1 hour to prepare the car for sprint qualifying and the race. However, unlike all his competitors, he decided not to use the medium or soft tires, the most relevant for the decisive moments of the weekend. Instead, its two drivers ran exclusively on the tough C2S. This choice, on a circuit where track evolution is critical, condemned the team to obtain artificially low times without real possibilities of understanding the car's behavior in highly demanding conditions. It was an incomprehensible strategy. The contrast with McLaren was brutal. While Ferrari accumulated laps with unrepresentative compounds, Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri attacked with the soft ones, exploring limits, adjusting the balance of the car for qualifying and the race. The result was complete dominance of the session, with Norris setting the pace at 1 minute and 9.975 seconds and Piastri just behind, 0.023 seconds behind. That preparation gave them an advantage of more than half a second over the rest of the field, including a Ferrari completely in the dark about how its car will perform at qualifying pace or in a short run. What happened at Interlagos was not just a bad Friday. It was a clinical diagnosis of an uncoordinated team, a car with structural problems, and a lack of technical direction that is reflected in every strategic decision. In a category where margins are microscopic and time is money, Ferrari wasted its only opportunity to fine-tune its competitive package for the weekend. And he did it in front of everyone with a Hamilton spinning top as a symbol of an SF-25 out of control in every sense. Internal tensions between a driver and his engineer are not strange in Formula One, but what is happening between Lewis Hamilton and Riccardo Adami at Ferrari transcends a simple lack of communication. This conflict has become a structural problem that directly affects the team's performance and has been completely exposed during the 2025 Brazilian Grand Prix. What for many was just a bad practice session was actually the visible result of a technical and human fracture within the Ferrari wall. Days before practice at Interlagos, Maranello internal sources confirmed that Hamilton and Adami were involved in an intense confrontation at the team facilities. The discussion, described as an internal clash, focused on fundamental issues, the direction of the SF-25 setup, the implementation of specific aerodynamic updates for the Brazilian layout, and above all, the work philosophy between pilot and engineer. These differences were not simple disagreements, but a collision between two completely different ways of understanding the preparation of a car for a Grand Prix. Hamilton, after more than a decade of almost telepathic collaboration with Pete Bonington at Mercedes, came to Ferrari with the expectation of maintaining that strategic harmony. His communication style is clear, direct, and deeply meticulous. You need accurate information in real time and fast responses. Adami, on the other hand, is an engineer with a solid career within Ferrari, but with a way of working that has proven not to fit with Hamilton. His more conservative and formal style had worked with drivers like Sebastian Vettel and Carlos Sainz, but with Lewis, the chemistry simply isn't there. This conflict is not new. From the beginning of the season, the signs were evident. In Monaco, poor strategic instruction led Hamilton to block Verstappen in qualifying, which ended in a penalty that compromised his entire career. In Miami, the British driver showed his frustration on the radio at the passivity of the wall when he asked for a change of positions with Leclerc. In Mexico, misinformation about the reason for a penalty fueled doubts even more. In all these cases, the constant has been imprecise, late, and sometimes incorrect communication. The most telling thing is that these are not just isolated moments. These errors reflect a profound disconnect between the driver and his technical team, a disconnect that prevents Hamilton from extracting the most from the car at key moments. What for any other driver might seem like a nuisance, in Lewis's case it becomes a direct obstacle to performance. And in a sport where strategic race management is as important as speed on the track, this is equivalent to racing with a flat tire. The conflict has reached a point where it has even had collateral consequences. Riccardo Corte, the performance engineer assigned to Hamilton, who is intended to facilitate his adaptation to the Ferrari environment, and the SF-25 suddenly resigned before the Brazilian GP. Corte had worked with Leclerc and Sainz in the past, but was reassigned to Hamilton at the start of 2025 precisely to avoid friction and improve technical integration. His departure was not only unexpected, but was interpreted by many within the paddock as a sign that the working environment with Hamilton had become unsustainable. Social networks reacted with irony, lamenting that the wrong Ricciardo has left. These types of internal fractures are especially destructive in a team like Ferrari, where media pressure and historical expectations amplify every mistake. The relationship between an elite pilot and his engineer must be based on absolute trust. If the pilot begins to question the quality of information he receives, if he feels that he is not heard, or worse yet, if he perceives that his needs are not understood, then performance collapses. And that's exactly what's happening right now. The fracture between Lewis Hamilton and his engineer Riccardo Adami has not only had technical implications within the Ferrari garage, but has also triggered a chain of events that is already causing cracks in the team's structure both internally and externally. One of the first visible symptoms of this breakdown was the unexpected departure of Riccardo Corte, Hamilton's performance engineer. His resignation, just a few days before the Brazilian Grand Prix, was interpreted as more than a simple professional decision. Corte was not just any member of the technical organizational chart. He had been specifically selected to facilitate Hamilton's integration into the Ferrari ecosystem, drawing on his previous experience with Leclerc and Sainz and his knowledge of Maranello's internal systems. In the context of Formula One, a performance engineer is much more than a technician who reads data. It is the bridge between the driver, the car, and the development team. He is the one who translates the driver's language into setup decisions, who evaluates the relationship between tire degradation and chassis behavior, and who directly contributes to race strategies. That Corte decided to leave that key position in the middle of a season that has not yet reached its halfway point points to a highly exhausting work environment where internal tensions exceed the capacity for professional maneuver. His departure is not only due to fatigue or a better offer. It is a direct symptom of the conflict between Hamilton and Adami and of an increasingly flawed technical environment. In sports, the results are not consistent. Ferrari has proven to be a step behind McLaren, Mercedes, and Red Bull in pure qualifying conditions, and its race pace suffers worrying ups and downs, especially on highly technically demanding circuits like Interlagos. The aerodynamic sensitivity of the SF-25, added to the general instability in the setup of the car, has generated a car that is extremely difficult to predict. For a driver who has built his career on consistency, strategic precision, and mastery of every technical element, this lack of reliability is more than frustrating. It is a direct barrier to his performance. From the team management, the official discourse is one of calm. Frederic Vasseur has publicly insisted that tensions are a normal part of a competitive environment. That radios taken out of context should not be interpreted as symptoms of a structural problem. That Hamilton and Adami are learning to work together. But the frequency with which these justifications appear reveals something else, that an attempt is being made to put out a fire that is already out of control. If it were a simple one-off disagreement, there would be no need for constant clarifications. Insistence on the normality narrative only reinforces the perception that the conflict is deeper than admitted. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.